to perform additional operations to break up the leftover residue from the fall harvest so we could just go. This gave us a lot more operational flexibility. And then collaborating with our operations team over the winter, they were able to improve our solids and polymer levels in the product to minimize pumping and loading issues this spring, which increased our loading times and hauling efficiency. So I think it was a really great team effort to really work on efficiencies to make this happen. The only incident this year was a spill at the northeast corner of the intersection of Highway 13 and River Road in Wanakee. A hose that connects the nurse tank to an offloading semi-trailer had a failure, which resulted in around 500 gallons of Class B liquid biosolids spilling onto the road and shoulder. Our crew quickly vacuumed up the material and pressure washed the entire area. DNR was notified immediately, and we filed an incident report with the DNR. Second item, policy governance monitoring report training. I'm currently arranging for training on how to develop and prepare good monitoring reports. Doesn't that sound exciting? It's very exciting to me, policy governance. Working with a company called the Governance Coach, who has been helping organizations with policy governance for over 30 years. Members of the CED Review Task Force on the Commission, along with some of my executive staff, will be participating in this training, which involves a series of 6 modules spaced over a few months. What will result is, I hope that we'll have more expertise in preparing effective reports for monitoring the performance of the district, and for me to report my performance as a chief engineer and director. If there are other commissioners who would like to participate in this training, it's about 3.5 hours of online instruction, and then there'll be a couple of coaching sessions with the consultant team from the Governance Coach. You're more than welcome to participate. If you would let me know or let Janelle know, we can plug you into the training that will be happening. I'm looking forward to that. The second training, looking at the commission calendar this spring, if I'm sure you've noticed, the calendar is relatively open, and I'm taking advantage of that with the May 27th meeting, which is what I'm calling our designated study session meeting. So you may recall a few months ago, we discussed trying to carve out study session dates every quarter or so, that when we go back to in-person meetings, these would be the in-person meetings. Well, May 27th will be our virtual in-person meeting. And during this session, I'm plugging in a refresher for interest-based problem solving for the commission, and of course the staff who plug in to these meetings with Madison College. And that will be probably a 20 to 30 minute refresher training, because we have a late agenda at that time. So President, how about those are my reports? I'll turn it back over to you unless there are questions from the commission.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Michael? Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Janelle, are you ready, or do we want to move on to Paul?
We should be ready. Please start with Mr. Borelli.
Okay, Bruce, we'll move back to item 4A, the pump station 7 force main.
Yeah, so again, Bruce Borelli, Director of Engineering, and I will try to share my screen. Hopefully this time it works okay.
Looking good, Bruce.
Okay. So our pump station 7 force main, an update on the emergency repairs and the leak that I gave a brief summary of at the last meeting. For those who are not or who are not at the last meeting, just a little recap. Our pump station 7 is located on Bridge Road at the Yahara River. Pumps to the treatment plant, directly to the treatment plant, to the headworks. There's twin force mains, two 36-inch force mains side by side, and they become one force main in the plant, one 48-inch force main in the plant. They're both 36-inch diameter pipes. One was installed in 1948. The other was installed in 1963. And they're both reinforced concrete. Different types of reinforced concrete, but both reinforced concrete pipe. On the 5th of April, during a routine locate request for the Beltline Flex Lane project, our sewer maintenance folks discovered a leak in the median where they were working on the Beltline. The leak was estimated, you can see the two force mains in this, the 1963 and the 1948 pipes. They're about 15, 20 feet apart. When they found the leak, this is what it looked like in the median of the Beltline. We estimated about 1,500 gallons had escaped. It was contained in this area of the Beltline. None of it made it to surface waters. We reported it to the DNR. We published it, noticed it in the paper, did all the requirements for that. For the next 2 weeks then after that, we did various attempts to try to figure out which of the two force mains was leaking. We sent more flow into one, sent flow into the other, diverted flow from station 18 to put more flow so we could run bigger pumps. Unsuccessful in general. The leak never surfaced again. You can see that the leak is boiling out in some locations here. This is more of a close-up of it, where how the water was coming out. But we never duplicated again, and the water never surfaced again. So on Friday the 16th, almost 2 weeks ago, we went out in the Beltline to start digging. This is before we started digging. Took a small backhoe out there. It's just tough doing anything in the median of the Beltline. It's just hard getting out there in general. There's so much traffic. So the thought was that if we dug, we could have a better idea. We might show more and indicate where the leak was. So this was before we started excavating out in the median. So the picture on the left is when we're starting. We started above the 1963 force main, the one that's further to the west. The picture on the right is we dug down. We found these are they have a cap on them, a concrete cap on them. Dug down to the cap. The cap was about 7 feet deep. The 1963 force main on the right, that hole, it was dry, no water at all from either side, from the bottom, no boiling, nothing. So we moved to the east and dug over the 1948 force main, same depth, about 7 feet down, just under 7 feet. And it's hard to see in here, but you can see water in the bottom of the excavation here, and it was seeping out of this bank from the north, and it did smell like sewage. So this indicated to us is that the leak was in the 1948 force main. We backfilled, and it was the leakage was from the north side. No leakage from the south side at all. No water coming in from the south side of this excavation. So again, this indicated to us that the leak was from the 1948 force main. Where exactly it was, it's still a mystery. It did not boil up or was not in this location from around the pipe itself. It was coming laterally, so likely the leak is somewhere underneath the lanes of the Beltline. So over that weekend, then we left the force mains in service because we needed to do some work up at the Headworks building. Then on, I think it was Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, the 21st, we went out and did some ground penetrating radar. We hired Golder Associates. They specialize in this. They have the geophysicists to do it. Looking for voids underneath that may be underneath the Beltline. Again, this is on the north side. This is the westbound lanes, if you will, of the Beltline. Looking for voids underneath the pavement. They got good results. They were able to see down about 6-7 feet. Basically after, and I'll show you what they did here. This looks like, it almost looks like a little lawnmower. And it sends electromagnetic waves, pulses down into the soils, and and they reflect, the different soils or voids reflect back differently. And the technology, again, that's for the geophysicists of the world, but they did what they called 59 transects, if you want to call them track lines, over those lanes of the belt line. Again, when we excavated in the median here, it seemed like the leak was above this force main, which is the 1948 force main. But we were able to get in here with the Beltline Flex Lane project. They had pushed traffic over to just the far right lane, so we were able to get into the two left-hand lanes of the westbound lanes and do these 59, if you want to call them track lines in general. Again, they reviewed the results. Nothing of concern was noted, no voids or anything. So all good news there. We did our due diligence, and they found basically nothing with the GPR, ground penetrating radar in general. So and then after that, starting last Wednesday, get my weeks mixed up here. We shut off the force mains in general. Well, as I say, the 1948 force main. It's got a valve on either end. And since then, we've been working those valves to make sure they're closed, all in preparation of taking that 1948 force main out of, I mean, it is out of service, but excavating it and actually cutting into it. And yesterday, we excavated, this picture is from about noon yesterday, just before noon yesterday. We excavated on the north side of the belt line. This is in WPS's campus, just behind the fence, the chain link fence for the belt line on the north side. Again, a 36-inch reinforced concrete pipe, dry, basically, didn't really see much of anything at this location as far as, any sort of leakages or anything like that. Yesterday, we were able to measure the pipe, and so now we know exactly what its OD is. We're going to order parts so when we cut into it, we can close it back up and repair it. Those will probably take a week or two to get. And then when that time comes and we have what we need, then we will actually slice into the pipe, cut it open, and then do some inspection on the inside. We need to know the internal diameter. We need to know, we'll run a camera down the force main and inspect as much of the inside as we can. We'll look at the inside of the pipe, how we're going to seal against it, what kind of condition it's in. So that's all probably a week or two away is the thought right now, all in preparation in the end to line this from one side of the belt line to the other, about 320 feet, something like that. That's what the plan is right now, to insert a cured in place liner inside of this. That liner would be basically a pipe that can stand by itself. It doesn't, all the hose pipe, all the pipe that you see in this picture, all that does is provide a form for that new cured in place liner. And again, that is after we know the internal diameter and the condition of it, then that is probably at least another month away from after that, because to get the liner and to get the resins and everything else is probably the better part of a month. So that's, a summary of where we're at right now. It's overall, this is an unbudgeted expense. We're still treating it as an emergency right now. It's proposed to be paid from the capital fund reserves. That's what those reserves are for. By policy, that's what they can be used for, is in emergencies like this. No different than your or mine or anybody else's savings account, to use those funds for this. It will require a capital budget amendment. We'll talk about that, at a future meeting, and Todd and Bill and others will account for this in the capital budgeting. But we're thinking that, each force main would cost in the neighborhood of, $250,300,000 to line just underneath the belt line. So, that's the summary of where we're at right now. I'd be glad to take any questions anybody has. Again, we're still treating it as emergency right now, and really no formal action required at this time unless the commission has any direction they would like to provide, but this is more of an update than anything.
Okay, we have a couple hands up, Ezra and then Ken.
Thanks a lot, Bruce. Good news. Thanks for that. I was gonna ask do we just have these 3 force mains coming into the plant that go under the beltline, or are there others? I'm trying to remember.
No, there are others. Let me,
There are others too.
I can maybe, I just stopped my share. The station 8 force main and the station 2 force main both cross underneath the belt line. If you ride the bike path underneath the belt line from the Sheridan, behind the Sheridan out to the plant, those 2 force mains are go underneath the belt line where the railroad tracks and the the bike path go underneath. And then these force mains and the station 18 force main. I mean, pretty much everything except for station 11 is located north of the, north of the belt line. So they all cross the belt line. Yes.
Got it. What I was thinking about too is when we're down by 1, what if we get big spring rain, big wet weather event, we can handle the flows and get everything delivered to the plant and not have any issues, right? How do we feel about that prospect?
Yeah, we're confident of that. Again, I can share my screen here again quick. So you can see on this is our GIS system, the station 2 and the station 8 force mains cross here underneath the belt line, but they're not, they're in bridge there. They cross in where the path goes underneath. Or actually the station 2 force main is underneath the path. But we're confident that, that we can handle those flows. The 1963 force main is still in service, and we are using that day to day right now. And then flow can back up through this blue pipe to station 18, and station 18 can also pump. So it's the beauty of having redundancy in your collection system like this. This is not the situation at all of our pump stations, not even close. And we're in a very favorable condition because of that. But between station 18 and the other force main, the second force main at station 7, we're confident we can do that. But is there a risk? Yes, there is a risk. Jen and I were looking at pictures yesterday from 1963 when this force main, the one that we're talking about, basically blew apart between the railroad tracks and First Supply. And the reports that I was looking at back from 1963 were not good. And it was, there was only one force main then. There was no station 18. There was no 1963 force main at that point. It was just getting put in. So it is still a risk, and it's there. We would like to proceed with that, and you can get it fixed for sure. So, but it all comes down to risk, and if we put it back in service and didn't do anything, the consequence of failure underneath the belt line is still very high. I mean, it's not in a good location. Let's put it that way.
No, thanks a lot, Bruce. Yeah, redundance and resilient system. Feels good to know we've got those things in place. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Ken?
Bruce, thanks for the update. I just had a question with regards to the force mains, and any idea what the expected lifespan is of one before it's lined or pre-lining?
Yeah, we've talked about this internally. I would say that, typically they're going to be in that range of probably, 75 years. And this one is at that, at that age. I think, internally, we need to talk as a group about potentially lining the entire force main. This is early in the infancy. I'm not sure why they didn't put a cast iron pipe in at that point, but they chose this reinforced concrete, and the joints aren't the most. It's got a lower pressure rating, first of all, and so I do think that this 1948 force main is probably nearing the end of its life. I would say for any typical force main, you're probably talking 75 years, and this one is in that realm now.
Okay, so they just get to the point where the concrete starts to break down.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, they're even the joints, and if you saw that picture, yesterday, the barrels of the pipe look okay, but what the problem usually is the joints of the pipe is what they're a little bit weaker. There's a gasket in there. Over time they degrade and they can get attacked from salt. From road salt and corrode from the outside. we haven't seen much on the inside of our force mains except at high points because they're full all the time. So they tend not to corrode from the inside. But yeah, I mean, it's usually the joints on something like this is likely is what would give up. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Bruce.
Yep.
Okay, Bruce, I have a question. If it's the joints on the outside, will a televising be able to tell you where it may be leaking? You know, you might obviously see a big failure, but if you have a slight leak that worked from the outside in, is the televising clear enough to be able to tell the joints?
My gut feeling is it probably won't be. We got to run a jetter through the pipe first and get it clean as we can. Usually there's a little scum layer on the inside of these force mains and get it clean. But I think you're right, President Hubble, that I think it might be difficult to see it from the inside unless it's a large crack or, you know, some bigger imminent failure, you know, but I think it's going to be hard to see it from the inside, but we want to run our camera through it. It's not that hard to do, to run a camera through it and look and clean and see if we can see anything. I mean, theoretically, I mean, once you get it cleaned out, if you had it open on both sides and ventilated, a person could actually go down it if they wanted to. But we'll run a camera through it. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be tough to see any sort of small cracks or failures, especially at a joint. Yep.
Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else? I don't see any other hands up, so we'll move on to, so we'll probably get another report in a couple of weeks based on.
Yes, we will keep this on the agenda as we continue to make progress and there's information to report. If there's just brief updates, I might do it during my CED update, but when Bruce has interesting information to share like he did today, we'll make sure it's on the agenda.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Excuse me. That moves to 4B, the accept the infiltration inflow reduction program plan. Jen, did you want to lead this off?
Yes. Let me. All right. Is my screen shared?
Good, Jen.
All right, thank
Good,
you.
Jen.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Jen Hurlbus, collection system engineer at the district. At the last commission meeting, we had a study session where I presented the infiltration and inflow reduction program plan and was presented also 4 principles for the program that were to support the commission outcome policies. So today, just going to do a brief review of the information presented at the last meeting for those that may not have been part of that meeting. And at the end, I am requesting that the commission accept the infiltration and inflow reduction program plan. Our owner community meetings held in 2019 identified infiltration and inflow reduction as a top priority for our communities. Infiltration and inflow, or II, reduction provides value to the district and owner communities in several ways. It increases resilience in the system despite changing weather patterns. It can defer the needs for capacity increases that would only be required due to the excess clear water getting into the system. System performance is improved by reducing the fluctuations in flow from wet weather responses. And having an II reduction program is necessary for meeting capacity management, operations, and maintenance, or CMOM, regulatory requirements. So the development of the infiltration and inflow reduction program plan was introduced to the commission on September 12th of 2019. And professional services for this were approved at that time. In 2020, we formed an advisory committee to work with us as we were developing the plan. We had a 6-member technical advisory committee comprised of representatives from our owner communities. The plan was completed in March of 2021 and was included in your commission packet for your reference. The goal for the district's II reduction program is to maintain the flow standards defined by the district's sewer use ordinance. To accomplish this, the program has 5 main components. First, we will provide administration. So we'll administer the regional II reduction program. We will provide support and education resources to our owner communities. And we're looking to emphasize private property, reducing private property II sources. That's been an area that there's just not maybe the comfort level or experience of even kind of, how to start a little bit more of a formal program to address private property II. The sewer use ordinance will be updated to establish the program and refine program metrics. As I've mentioned, we currently have a standard for 4 times the average daily flow. Is anything in excess of 4 times that average daily flow is considered non-compliant with our sewer use ordinance. But it's kind of the follow-up work from that and where we go from there is maybe not as clear as it could be. So I think that's an area that we want to address, is make sure that we're being clear in what the metrics are for peak flow management in our sewer use ordinance. Then the district will monitor for compliance with the sewer use ordinance, and flow monitoring is the expected method for measuring compliance. And once we've got the program going more with flow monitoring, then if there are areas that are found to be non-compliant or exceeding the standards in the ordinance, then we will work with communities to develop work plans. So the community, the owner community, would be the ones kind of taking the lead on proposing what kind of work they want to do, and they would be planning, budgeting, and then completing that work. District will be here as a resource and kind of provide that administrative oversight, and then follow up again with flow monitoring after the 5-year work plan has been completed. So section 7 of the program plan includes a multi-year ramp up plan of work activities and yearly cost estimates to provide the necessary program resources. Costs are expected to increase from $100,000 to $500,000 over the next 5 to 6 years. Flow monitoring is the largest annual cost item for the program, and that is still a couple of years away. So that's why you'll see the costs kind of, again, ramp up over the years. Over the next 2 years, we need more work to evaluate our how much II we have in the system, and then start running these kind of scenarios so that we can answer some of these cost questions. So how we plan to do that is that we're going to update the collection system hydraulic model and develop a flow monitoring plan. These will be activities for 2021 and into 2022, maybe even a little into 2023. So updating that hydraulic model provides us the tools to evaluate how the regional system responds to wet weather events and assess the level of risk. It will also help find or identify areas with high II on a very large scale. And that will help us, start developing where we want to put flow monitors in the system. So in addition, we'll be continuing work with the Technical Advisory Committee and begin engaging all of the district's owner communities to guide program development. So at the study session on April 15th, I presented 4 guiding principles for the program. We're trying to keep the program in mind with how it aligns and supports the commission outcome policies. The full text for the principles were provided in the commission agenda report and the resolution. I've abbreviated them here, same as the table I presented before. And if you note, all 4 principles kind of check the box in owner confidence. The program's success is entirely dependent on collaboration with our owner communities. And these 4 principles do address building that owner confidence in the program. So the principles were included in the resolution because the commission approval of these principles does provide staff with guidance on the program direction. So in conclusion, the commission is requested to adopt the resolution accepting the infiltration and inflow reduction program plan and approve the guiding principles for the program. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Anybody have any questions before we take action on this? I don't see any hands up. Jen, I had a question. It's on the monitoring. So you talked about, are we going to be just mainly doing the monitoring in our own system, or are we going to be going out into lines of, our customer or owner communities?
Excellent question. The plan actually proposes 20 monitoring locations per year that would rotate throughout the system, and likely a good majority of those may end up in the local systems. So long term, I think we will also start including more district permanent flow monitoring locations in areas that we can kind of have a more consistent long-term record to compare to, especially if there's more meters upstream of that point, then you can kind of see from year to year, kind of have that downstream. Those permanent flow meters, those would be in the district system.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. I don't see any hands up. Thank you again, Jen. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution accepting the infiltration inflow reduction program?
I'd move approval of the resolution. It's Murphy.
This is Sarah. I'll second.
Oops. Motion by Commissioner Murphy, and I think that was Commissioner Eskridge was a second.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments?
Nice job, Jen. Good plan.
Okay,
Agreed.
I see some thumbs up. Okay, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the infiltration inflow reduction program plan, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay, none. Motion carries. Thank you very much. That will move us to item 5B, the regulatory and legal report. Paul?
Good morning. There we go. Yes, so you have a report with your materials. I would just like to highlight 2 items. One is on the ever-changing PFAS front. There has been some new legislation introduced, or I should say reintroduced from last session. I'm not sure its prospects are very high, but that's something we will continue to monitor. There is also in the press, you probably noticed the lawsuit by WMC. There was a temporary injunction to have them withhold results for samples taken after April 1st. But for most wastewater municipal facilities, those results were taken before April 1st. So I'm not sure what practical effect that has. But more to the point, the sampling itself can go forward. So I don't see this having a significant impact at this point. Based upon discussions I've had with the DNR, I'm anticipating that we'll have kind of a better idea of where the rule on surface water standards will be going sometime mid to end of next month. So we will be monitoring that and certainly keep you posted. The other thing that I wanted to just highlight this morning, it's been on the list for a little bit, but I think particularly in light of some of the discussions we've had on the collection system, there is what's known as a general permit for certain impacts to wetlands. And for many years, there was a kind of a general permits provide kind of a streamlined process. And there was a general permit for municipalities which covered utilities, but only those utilities defined for purposes of Chapter 196 under the Public Service Commission. And of course, sanitary sewer and stormwater are not considered utilities for that purpose. So the general permit did not apply. So in conjunction with work we've been doing for the League of Municipalities, we've been working to have a parallel general permit available for sanitary and storm sewer installations. That process is working its way through. We had comments in February. It doesn't look like there is any major concerns, so we're hoping that will be in place sometime later this year and might be of assistance to the district as it deals with pipelines that cross wetlands. Other than that, most of the other things are pretty much as they've been, but we will keep monitoring it, and I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any questions? I don't think so. Okay, we'll keep an eye on the PFAS.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that will take us to Alan. You got your operations report. Tell us how well that new system of disinfection is doing.
Well, we'll get to that. Let me bring up my slideshow. Share. Can you see that okay?
No.
You
There we
cannot.
go.
Okay. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Alan Grooms. I'm operations manager here at the district, and we'll be going through the March performance report and that teased update on the UV system. So you've got the full, oh boy, that's in the packet as far as what the detailed reports, the spreadsheet as we sometimes call it. So these are the more detailed metrics for the month of March. CBOD5, carbonaceous BOD, or biochemical oxygen demand. That number, we had 3 milligrams per liter for the month. That's a fairly new parameter for us on effluent. Recall that came with the new permit starting last May. So we're still kind of establishing what is the historical range for that. But at this point, we've got almost a year's worth of data on that. So starting to firm up there. Just a reminder on these dashboards gauges, the shaded portion is kind of our historical operating range for these parameters. And then, the needle, of course, is where we are with respect to our normal, most stringent limit. Our permit in detail has a lot of specifics on dailies and monthlies and sometimes annual averages. These are basically generally on a monthly basis we're looking at here. So that's usually the most stringent one we're talking about. So 3 milligrams per liter is well below our number for CBOD5. Ammonia, we're well below our 3.8 limit with a 0.77, but as you can see, that's slightly above our historical normal. That's not atypical for coming into say March. We've been getting a little bit more ammonia, nitrogen loading to the plant. We've done some plant activities with construction, so that's pushed our number up a little bit higher than maybe typical there. Phosphorus, on the other hand, is a little bit below our normal range at 0.21. Milligrams per liter, and our limit there is 0.6 under the current permit. Suspended solids kind of running right down the middle, and chlorides a little bit elevated beyond our normal range, but under our permit number. And of course, that's likely due to some a little bit of runoff and things like that coming from March, transitioning from winter towards spring. So, any questions on the dashboard metrics? Moving on to resource recovery. Generally speaking, since we've got March in, obviously that's quarter of the year. So most of these parameters, you could multiply those by 4 and have a pretty good estimate of where we're going to be on the year. And that holds for everything other than the struvite and the Metro mix. So Clean water, we're transitioning right online for about 14, 15 billion gallons for the year. That's a little bit low, but we've had a fairly dry year. So that tracks, that number makes sense. Similar with biogas, we're looking at targeting a number probably between 290, 300 million cubic feet. Again, that's right on track with what we would expect. Metro Mix, we are looking to make some of that later in the year for some piloting purposes. But so far this year, we have made none. And then Struvite, that one, we count those numbers when the bagged Struvite actually leaves on the back of a truck. So basically when we can invoice for it, that's when we count it. So that number can vary a little bit when you look at month to month or even a shorter term, like 3 months, but over the course of a year, it tends to average out. So in this case, for example, a truck that might have left on April 1st with 20 tons of Struvite, that production came in the month of March, but it's not going to be counted until April. So the month-to-month data can really fluctuate a lot, but over the course of a longer period of time, it tends to even out. So, and these numbers, if you projected this out, it would say we're going to be low on production. We also do tend to be a little bit lower on our production in early part of the year, the colder months, and that's something we're kind of interested in trying to drill down into why exactly that is. It does seem to vary a little bit seasonally for what's in fact a chemical process. So that's kind of an interesting thing we've noticed. We're kind of interested in just satisfying that curiosity to answer that question, but we don't have a good answer for that right now. So any question on the resource recovery dashboards? Okay, and then ta-da, we've got our UV system started up 2 weeks ago today, I guess, as I think about it. April 15th. April 15th is the start of disinfection season for Badfish Creek, which is our primary outfall point. Badger Mill Creek actually doesn't start until May 1st, so this Saturday, but we treat everything to the same limits. Oftentimes Badger Mill Creek is what drives our limits, but in this case, Badfish Creek drives our UV season. So this is taken the morning of the 15th. So after a few hours of live operating time, the grates are taken off. We were still in the process of doing some final tweaks on the startup of the system. So you probably arguably got a better look, maybe not as clean a look at the system, but a better look at the lamps and that sort of thing in the system. So it looks like a lot of wiring and this green glow. It looks like we're maybe producing Gatorade or something like that. But it's actually that wavelength of light coming through our wastewater is what gives it that greenish look coming through there. That's a very specific wavelength of light, 254 nanometers that we put out to do the disinfection process on that. System is operating really good. We had a few initial kinks that we had to adjust for. And when I say kinks, the system was doing what it was supposed to be doing, but we've set up our collection system to do flushing cycles to keep the wet wells cleaned out and sediments from accumulating in our force mains. And so, that requires a fairly quick response from the UV system. It's not sure what's going on, so it's trying to ramp up, and then we start to turn things down. So we had to have a few adjustments made to accommodate that, and that seems to be working really well now. Our numbers well within the permit limits. Our numbers have been double digits on the order of about 30 to 60. Most probable number per 100 milliliters. To put that in context, 400 is our limit. So we're putting out numbers that are about 1/8 of what we're allowed to put out, which is obviously we'd love to be there all the time. So it's performing really well so far. Early returns are good. So any questions on that or anything else operationally?
Yeah, I get a question, Alan. So you talked about the where we sit with the new system and and how well it's performing. How does that compare to the old system?
Yeah, it's a good question. The old system was 17 plus years old when we took it out. That system at the end, our staff had done a really good job of keeping that going, but we were putting out numbers on the order of about 100 to 150. Most probable number. And when I say most probable number, what that is they take a grab sample and they plate that, or lab personnel do that. They put a plate, they culture it for like a day, and then they do a physical count of how many fecal coliform colonies are starting to grow on that plate within a certain volume. And so that number is what goes into our count. So it's actually a someone sitting at a microscope doing a physical count. So this is doing about, in that metric, about 3 times better than the other system. The other part of that, though, the part of that equation is maybe harder to really discern, Commissioner Hubble, is this system is going to be most of the time more energy efficient. What it's doing as part of its process, it's actually looking at how good is the water quality, how clear is the water, how well is this UV light at this wavelength transferring through this water, and adjusting its power output based on that. So if we've got a little clearer water going out, it can ramp down the power sometimes. Whereas if it's, more solids and stuff going out, it can turn up the power to compensate for that. So we're still meeting our regulatory limits, but it's responding in a smart fashion to what the quality of that water we're returning to the environment is. And so whereas our old system basically just it was either on or it's off. And so that system was running at, if it was on, it was 100%. So in many respects, this is almost certainly doing a better job with less power.
Thank you, Ellen. One thing I noticed is the system kind of sit above the water, because the old system, the water went through, and this looks like the lights are sitting just above it and then shine down in. Is that correct?
Yeah, it has that appearance, though. Maybe I can bring something to a future presentation that maybe better depicts what this is. These lamps, just to give you a perspective, and I'm looking, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, on the right-hand picture here, where you're kind of looking at it, that you're standing on the upstream side of the channel looking downstream. So the flow is running from you towards the far end of the picture. The lamps are down at an angle. So the top is at the front end of the flow, and it angles down. So it kind of pushes that flow towards the bottom, and it has to work its way around the lamps. And all the lamp spacing is based on a particular distance that each molecule of water has to go within a certain distance of that bulb in order to be disinfected. And the residence time is also a factor. So these bulbs are actually fully submerged. It's dangerous to look at these lights if they're out of the water. In the water like this, like on the right-hand picture, you can see a pretty white light there that's actually submerged at a safe distance. I'm told it's a safe distance. I'm always a little bit, it's like, should I really be looking at that? But that's all our experts at the manufacturer say no, that's the wavelength can only penetrate so far through the water. So that's what you're seeing there. That bright light is actually the lights underneath the water. And if the water level were to drop where those lights would expose, there's safety mechanisms in here that would just cut the power to that bank. It would take it offline. Like if for some reason we lost water there to safely cover those lamps. And that's both for we don't want that light getting out. It could damage, it could cause, it's a UV bulb. So it's like a tanning lamp, maybe on steroids. It's a very focused UV radiation. So, it could quickly burn your eyes, burn your skin. So if that were to drop, it drops for a health and safety perspective, but also that water is required across those lamps for cooling. So probably telling you more than maybe you wanted to know about that. But
no, that's real interesting. Thank you very much, Alan. It's a smart system. In other words, it's amazing, the innovations. Okay. Anybody else? Nope. Thumbs up from Tom. Okay. That will move on to our future meeting schedule. That's in the separately attached in the on the main page with the commission. Any future agenda topics? Michael mentioned the one meeting study session coming up a month from now on May 27th. And then any other business? And a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Wilson.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second, Commissioner Clark.
Okay, we have motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Clark to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care,
Have a good
everybody.
rest of the week.
Have a good weekend.
Aye.